This week's edition of NJBIA is Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. By New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 67 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, New Jersey's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, is actually leading to both energy cost increases and worsening air quality for the Garden State. But a new NJBIA campaign called Rethink RGGI is offering a win-win solution for ratepayers and the environment. And we spoke to NJBIA Deputy Chief Government Affairs Officer Ray Cantor to get the scoop. So Ray, thank you so much for being here. It's a very busy time of year for you at the end of June. Before we get into the Rethink RGGI campaign, why don't you tell the folks what the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative is?
Well, Bob, again, thanks for having me on for this very important topic. RGGI is a multi-state, 10-state cap and trade type of system where each state is allowed a certain amount of allowances. And those allowances each represent a ton of carbon emissions. Okay. And it really impacts electric generating units. So by having this system and assigning allowances to how much you can permit each EGU to emit in each state, it regulates how much greenhouse gases are emitted from the electrical generation system. Right. And over time, those allowances go down, with the theory being that those sources will be replaced by cleaner sources of energy.
So I know you've never been a huge fan of RGGI, but I mean, so the overall idea is to try to lower emissions, basically, in a region.
No, that's the intent of it. When RGGI was first established or became operative in 2009, it really didn't lower anything because the allowances were set way above the amount of emissions that were coming out.
Got it.
It was really set up to show that the system can work.
Okay.
So over time, the allowances have gone down, or they've cut the allowances, and but we're in a situation right now where we need more generation, not less. And of course, there are other problems with leakage, which we'll talk about in the Rethink RGGI campaign.
Yeah, so before we get to that, I know New Jersey's been in and out of RGGI over the years. So I think we went back, 2020, right?
When Governor Murphy, well, first of all, Governor Christie withdrew us from RGGI, relatively early on in his tenure.
Right.
When Governor Murphy came in, he put us right back into RGGI, and that's where we are right now.
Okay, so what's happening now as a result of New Jersey still being a participant in RGGI?
Well, the problem with RGGI fundamentally is that if you have certain states who are in this system and their allowances are being cut back,
right.
The problem is we get our electricity not just from New Jersey, not just from the RGGI states. We get our energy from the PJM, grid.
Right.
And the PJM grid contains a number of states who are not in RGGI. And as a result of that, because they don't have to pay the amount for RGGI allowances, their energy becomes cheaper. And the way the system is set up, the cheaper energy goes onto the grid first. Therefore, our cleaner systems, our clean generating units, which are some of the most efficient combined cycled units, in the country, they have to shut down, and we end up buying electricity from the PJM grid, which is coming from dirty coal and less efficient gas units.
Right, and so
and that's, by the way, that's called leakage.
Right.
We always knew this was going to happen, but and we'll talk more about this, why it's happening.
Right.
But as the prices have gone up, the allowance prices have gone up, the incentive to have leakage has emerged.
So basically, our generators, our cleaner generators here, they're not able to compete. Is that safe to say?
Well, I was at DEP and we were overseeing the RGGI program. The base amount of an allowance was $3, and for years it was selling at $3 a ton.
Right.
Again, it wasn't meant to reduce emissions to start. But once they start reducing the amount of allowances, supply and demand, the cost for each allowance has gone up. In the last auction, I think it's been over $40 a ton.
Wow.
So now when we're talking the difference between $3 and $40, that is a significant amount of money. And our generators have to bid into the system based on having to pay for RGGI. They therefore, are less economic. Their costs are much higher than Pennsylvania, than Ohio, than West Virginia, who's not in RGGI. And again, so their units stay on, their dirty, cheaper units stay on, our cleaner, more expensive units shut off. As a result of this, we're paying a lot more, into the system. And the end result, ironically, is we have more carbon emissions at the end of the day.
So we're in this organization to get less emissions. We're paying to be in it, but we're getting more emissions anyway. Is that basically what's happening?
That's exactly what is happening. So it's doing the exact opposite. So in the time when we're worried about affordability, when we're trying to reduce our carbon emissions, RGGI is doing two things. It's increasing cost, and it's resulting in more emissions. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and Ray, I was reading one of your editorials in NJ.com, and a line really struck with me, so I wrote it down here. RGGI allowances now function as a tax for New Jersey's energy generators, but more importantly, they act as a tax that generators in non-RGGI states don't have to pay.
That's absolutely true. Again, we're imposing this tax, this RGGI tax, on our generators, who have done everything right to create the cleanest generating units that can be built. But it's not being imposed on the coal plants in Pennsylvania, and again, it just doesn't make sense from a economics perspective or from an environmental perspective.
I should probably ask, as you were talking about Pennsylvania, which is now a non-RGGI state. They were a RGGI state at one point.
Pennsylvania was never a RGGI state.
They never were a RGGI state.
There was some political machinations to try to get them in.
Okay.
But they never officially joined RGGI.
Was Ohio ever a RGGI state?
Ohio was never either.
Got it. And so, as we're talking, we think win-win-win. Sometimes I think the environmentalists may say, well, we're not getting out of RGGI just for the sake of saying we're still in RGGI. Is that a concern? I mean, could an environmentalist get behind this at all?
Environmentalists should get behind it. If environmentalists care about reducing carbon, then they have to rethink RGGI. They have to think differently. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes people look at RGGI almost as a religion. We need to be there even if it's working or not.
Right.
And that's the problem with a lot of our programs. We're in it, we're going to stay in it, even if it's doing the exact opposite of what we want.
Yeah.
We need to rethink RGGI so we could save consumers money and we could lower emissions.
Right.
I don't see the argument against it.
Yeah, it's almost like ideology versus practicality.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now BIA has embarked on this Rethink RGGI campaign, which basically offers a solution for New Jersey to kind of suspend involvement or participation in RGGI, but it's not quite that simple, is it?
Well, no, it's not, nothing in RGGI is quite that simple. So RGGI, the statute, had a set amount of $7 a ton, by which, if it ever reached $7, we should rethink whether or not our participation makes sense or not.
Right. And you said now it's around 40.
It's around 40. we blew that a few years ago. We blew by the $7, but no one ever stopped to look to see whether or not this still made sense. So what our suggestion is, what our proposal is, let's use that $7 a ton. Let's set that for all emissions, in New Jersey. That is a level that they could still be competitive against the non-RGGI states. So we could still raise that money. The state will collect it. They can still do clean energy type of programs with that money. I think they'd be raising about $135 million, or so, at $7 a ton. But and we'll reduce emissions at the same time. So the state will get money. Our electric generating units will be able to operate, and carbon emissions will go down. It's a win-win-win.
Right, and there's some consumer savings potentially here, right?
Well, we're paying about close $280 million a year in RGGI allowance fees. So that money is just being sucked out of consumers' pockets. And again, the end result is power plants in Pennsylvania coal plants in Pennsylvania, are operating. We're getting their pollution, carbon's going up, our money is leaving the state. It really makes no sense. We need to rethink Reggie.
Right. Well said. And just on the CO2 emissions, I read it could be 5 million fewer tons of CO2 a year.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So again, rather than reducing emissions, we have 5 million more tons of carbon emissions as a direct result of our participation in Reggie.
Right. And I should have mentioned this at the onset, that there is, there's revenue that the state generates for projects. So with this plan, the state would still get some of that money, correct?
They're still going to get about $130 million a year, mm-hmm. and that money is used, they've been for various different clean energy projects. Mm-hmm. Some of that money is actually going to offset, higher costs of electricity. So each year DEP comes up and the BPU with a plan on how to spend the money. Mm-hmm. So yes, so under our proposal, the state will still be getting a significant amount of money to do good clean energy programs.
Right. I should point out, when anybody involved with Trenton, energy affordability has been a goal for everyone on both sides of the aisle. Governor Sherrill ran on it. So does this plan, in still maintaining some of the Reggie benefits, for lack of a better term, it seems like it's feasible, because we're not getting out of anything really except paying more.
No, it's absolutely feasible. It absolutely makes sense. The state will be getting monies that they can use for good purposes. Mm-hmm. Our clean energy generating systems will still be able to operate. Carbon emissions will go down. I see no downside to any of this.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you about, you mentioned $40 a ton now around. If that number continues, first of all, why is that number going up?
Again, it's going up because our allowances are going down.
Got it.
And it's just purely supply and demand. Mm-hmm. So you do that, and the price of it goes up.
And if we stay the same, is there any reason to believe it won't continue?
No, it will keep going up. Okay. As the allowance. There's going to be another round of allowance cuts coming soon. Okay. Once that happens, the price will go up even higher. Once the price goes up even higher, mm-hmm. you'll have even more emissions coming from Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So, we're almost in a death spiral.
Yeah.
As the cost of allowances go up, our clean systems shut down. Right. Dirty power plants continue to operate and pump in, more carbon emissions into the atmosphere. It makes no sense to stay in the system the way it's working right now.
Right. So I guess the last question I'll ask now is, where do you see this going? I mean, I think this is a fairly wonky subject. I think we're being completely honest, and to get the public engaged and involved is probably a struggle. But at the end of the day, if a lawmaker or a governor can say, we're saving you some money, we're protecting our air, or we're making our air cleaner, and we're still maintaining some of the Reggie benefits, it probably has some legs, right?
Well, it's wonky only when you get into the details, but at a base level, it's very simple. We're saving consumers money, mm-hmm. we're reducing carbon emissions, we still have money left over for the state to do clean energy projects. It's as simple as that.
Okay. All right, thanks to Ray Cantor, and to get more information on the Rethink Reggie campaign, go to njbia.org/rethinkreggie. We'll be back right after this.
From the Great Plains to the Great Lakes and all across America, AT&T is bringing communities closer together by investing in our communications infrastructure. And we're helping America stay connected when it's needed most, giving first responders the critical communications they need when lives are at stake, and helping communities weather whatever comes their way. Working every day in every state to connect more people to more opportunities.
In our line of work, reliable communication is the difference between life and death. We need air, water, and information. That information has to move as fast as my firefighters and paramedics. When we switched to FirstNet, our communications became seamless. It allows us to project life-saving resources where they're needed most. Without FirstNet, our ability to coordinate command or response to a crisis would be at risk.
Welcome back to NJBI is My New Business as we turn toward a different kind of crisis in New Jersey. High quality and affordable childcare is often a challenge for New Jersey families, the state's workforce, and its businesses. Start Strong New Jersey is a new statewide nonpartisan campaign that is now making childcare an essential economic infrastructure issue in New Jersey. And we recently spoke to Start Strong New Jersey campaign director Sharon Levine to learn more about the importance of their advocacy. Have a look. Sharon, Start Strong New Jersey, what is it? What are we doing here?
Hi, Bob, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today.
It is a pleasure.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure.
So, for many families these days, it's getting harder and harder to balance family and work. Everything costs more, and there is just never enough time in the day. And for many families with young children, their largest expense is childcare. And that's really where Start Strong New Jersey comes in. We are a statewide advocacy campaign uniting businesses, parents, and early childhood educators behind three core principles. The first is that childcare must be both accessible and affordable for every family who relies on it. Second, we must compensate our early childhood educators as the true professionals that they are. And third, which may be of most interest to your audience, we must recognize and fund childcare as the essential economic infrastructure that it is.
Okay. Yeah, I know, Althea D. Ford, who you work with, and she's obviously at NJBI, she's always like, childcare undergirds both the business and the worker.
100%.
So can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So childcare is the linchpin, right, of our economy. Childcare is essential economic infrastructure because, simply put, New Jersey does not work without it. Childcare enables families to go to work and businesses to thrive. When families and parents cut back their hours or drop out of the workforce entirely, employers struggle with to meet workforce needs. They suffer from reduced productivity, and they experience slowed growth. Wow. When we have a stable childcare system, we are strengthening employers, we're going to be able to provide growth opportunities for families, and we're really going to protect New Jersey's long-term economic future. Right.
So you mentioned when we have that kind of setup. I don't know if all or any states have that. What is it a crisis level, and is it just unique to New Jersey, or is it all over the place?
So I would say this is not a unique problem to New Jersey. The child care crisis is national, but I would say that we are super excited about some of the great things that are happening around the country. In Connecticut, they have recently started an endowment to help fund child care and early childhood education. New York is expanding state-funded child care, and I know preschool. And then in New Mexico, they're moving forward as well with some options. So I don't see any reason why New Jersey can't also be a leader in this space.
So what we're talking about here is hopefully getting some funding if it's happening in other states. As we record this and it's budget season, and there's a lot of programs on the fence, off the fence. Things are tighter now. Do you think the legislature or some folks in the legislature have an understanding that childcare does get some support?
So I definitely think we have some childcare champions in the legislature, and they are actively working on bills that I think would improve the childcare system. And really, that's where Start Strong New Jersey comes in and where my advocacy comes in. We need all the lawmakers to understand that affordable childcare affects New Jersey citizens across the state and New Jersey's economy. Right. And they are very closely linked.
And Sharon, as you were talking, it's funny because I know you worked at the ARC of New Jersey before that. Any similarities between that in terms of making awareness?
Absolutely. So I think in my role at the ARC of New Jersey, advocating for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, a lot of the work was educating lawmakers and members of the administration about the needs of this community, right? And so there are a lot of parallels in Start Strong, right? We're talking about hardworking families struggling to make ends meet. We need to uplift the challenges that they are facing and how childcare really affects them and their budget. As I mentioned earlier, for many families with young children, it is the largest expense, costing more than their rent or their mortgage. Wow, yeah. So that's eating up a significant amount of their budget. And so we need to make sure that there is advocacy on their behalf and that both lawmakers and New Jersey at large understand how critical this service is.
Do you hear from folks like, whether they have a child or whether they're an employer, like we really, it's so hard to get the productivity we need or they can give because of childcare or the lack thereof.
100%. And I think that one of the things you need to remember and that we always try to stress to people is even if you don't have a young child who's currently receiving childcare, the childcare crisis affects you because it affects the economy. And so even if you don't have young children, having workers being able to support New Jersey businesses being able to find the workforce that they need, that affects everyone.
Right. I wanted to ask you about, Sharon, also, Rutgers-Eagleton just did a poll on this, kind of looking at the access for childcare is huge, but the affordability of it and, the affordability options, can you kind of surmise what that survey said?
So the Rutgers-Eagleton poll really proved what we are hearing, what we already know to be true, which is nearly 7 out of 10 New Jerseyans say that it is very difficult to find affordable, accessible childcare. And 7 out of 10 New Jerseyans believe that the lack of affordable childcare is hurting New Jersey's economy. Okay. And so we know that this is very reflective of the experiences that real people in the state are having, and that's why we feel it's so important that action is needed to address this.
Right. When we talk about accessibility, is it a matter of childcare places can't stay in business because they have their challenges? Is there a desert of childcare places? What are we dealing with here?
So I think there are a lot of challenges, and certainly coming out of COVID, we saw the difficulties that childcare centers unfortunately faced due to the pandemic, as many businesses did. Right. I think one of the biggest challenges is the early childhood educators. These are not babysitters. These are a critical workforce that are teaching our infants and toddlers and preschoolers at a time when children's brains are growing the fastest.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, low wages make it difficult for us to kind of keep those staff from finding other employment, right? Yeah. Childcare workers really struggle to afford their own childcare. Oftentimes they are reliant on government assistance because of the low wages that they receive. And I think that's one of the things we really need to look at. We have heard from early childhood educators who have to unfortunately leave the job that they love and are committed to and love working with the children, but unfortunately they do need to take care of their own families.
Yeah. I always feel child care workers, Sharon, are like the best people in the world. I recall my son Aiden had gone to child care for a few years, and like when he left, they were crying, you know what I mean? And they had such a positive influence on his early life. And now if we see them somewhere in town or something like that, and they see how tall he is, they're like,
yes,
my gosh. But they always remember the names and stuff like that.
They do. They are wonderful. And I can speak from my personal experience. My son went to childcare as well. And when we had our first parent-teacher conference in kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher really wanted to know, where did your son go to childcare? Right. Because he came in with such an amazing foundation. He was a step ahead. Because this isn't babysitting. He is learning. And when he came into the public school system, he was really, ready to go and really well equipped.
Right. And so if we have a lot of business owners who watch this, a lack of childcare or the childcare challenges is important to them too.
100%. And I want to just say that we are so grateful to have NJBIA as a member organization for Start Strong New Jersey. Recently, there was a business roundtable conversation hosted by NJBIA and Moms First New Jersey, which convened business leaders from across the state to really start having that dialogue around childcare and figuring out what role the employer can play and kind of taking that conversation to the next step. We really feel it's important for business to be at the table for these conversations as we develop solutions, because they need to be solutions that work for everyone. And I can tell you that other states who have had success in improving the childcare system, they have done it with business by their side.
Right.
So we certainly feel that New Jersey is no different, and we want business to be a partner as we explore ways to improve the childcare system.
Yeah, the one thing I got out of that conference is consensus. Like, this is a real thing. It's a real thing.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, Sharon, earlier, the blueprint for affordable childcare. New Jersey doesn't work without it, which is like the greatest title ever. And there were 3 core principles. You went through them before. I just wanted to just bring them up one more time and see if you could expound them a little bit. Childcare must be affordable for every family that needs it. How feasible is that?
Well, I think we all have to be working in the direction of making it happen, right? I think childcare is what economists would call a market failure, which means that it costs more to deliver than families can afford to pay.
Right.
Unfortunately, childcare is not a luxury like a sports car. It's essential economic infrastructure.
Right.
And so we have to treat it that way. You know, childcare is very labor intensive. It's not something that can be automated. It's not something that we can utilize AI.
Right.
You know, caring for infants and toddlers and preschoolers, this is a labor-intensive market. And so we need to recognize the costs and figure out solutions to improve affordability.
That is very well said. It's real people.
It's absolutely real people.
Early childhood educators must be compensated and supported as the professionals they are. You kind of hit on this, but like they do, to be an educator in childcare, you don't just say this is what I'm going to be one day. You have to go through a process.
Absolutely. There is training, there is supervision. As I mentioned earlier, definitely not babysitting. And you really, as a parent, you want to be able to drop your child off at whatever child care center best meets your family's unique needs and feel confident that your child is in a safe, secure, nurturing environment where they're learning, right? This is where children learn how to negotiate relationships with peers, how to regulate their emotions, how to share, how to learn the ABCs and shapes and colors and all of those things. There is a curriculum to this. It is not babysitting, and we know the value of it when we see children age and how much they retain. This is really a time in their life where their brains are growing the fastest and they absorb so much.
I'm going back.
I'll go with you.
Okay. And childcare must be recognized as essential economic infrastructure and funded accordingly. So we kind of hit on all that.
Yes.
And Sharon, when did Start Strong New Jersey actually launch?
So Start Strong New Jersey launched in September, and we're really excited about the momentum. We actually launched our blueprint then in February, which includes input from policymakers, people with lived experience in the childcare world. And we're really excited. We had the Lieutenant Governor come to our launch. Many lawmakers from both parties were there, and we really feel as if this is gaining traction.
And that's the beauty of this. This is not a political issue. This is an everybody issue.
100%. It doesn't matter what political party you are. It doesn't matter where you live in the state of New Jersey. Childcare is the linchpin, right? This is the workforce behind the workforce. So no matter where you are, no matter whether you have small children or not, childcare touches all industries, and employers really should be paying attention and cognizant of how much childcare affects the economy and their ability to be productive, find the workers they need, and grow their businesses.
And I saw the website. You should just tell the folks in closing where they can go to get more information.
Yes, we would love to have people join us. StartStrongNJ.org. You can read a copy of the blueprint. You can sign up to receive our newsletter, learn more about how you can get involved, share your story. We would really love to have more voices out there amplifying the message and really just raising awareness that childcare is not this small issue that New Jersey can afford to ignore. We must do something to impact the affordability.
Okay, thanks to Strong Start New Jersey's Sharon Levine for the conversation, and thank you for joining us on NJBI is Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.
Did you know advanced power strips with built-in plug load management features cut all power to devices that still draw energy when turned off? Plus, there are rebates for switching. Believe it. For more, connect at bizsave.pseg.com, your trusted partner in energy efficiency.
Calm before the storm? No, thank you. This is Jim's time to shine. And Mike's. And Jennifer's. Helmets? Check. Drones? Check. Checking that thing we just checked? Double check. We ain't got time to chill. We're out here driving this thing. This is when we get to work. To keep you connected. No matter what. Connect before the storm. Change how we weather them. Connecting changes everything. AT&T.
Learn about the benefits of membership at njbia.org.